Hello guys, and welcome to another of our videos. Maybe you didn't expect that, but it is here, and it is here because I realized that this year we just made the 5th auction using the sheet. So I thought it's a nice moment to make a bit of to make a flashback and see some history about the sheet, and also some interesting stats and trends about the auction that we have been having in the UDL, which is I think quite unique, as at least in my experience. So this is while here is dubbed the summer series, but it's not the summer anymore, so it's more like the preseason, but I don't expect this to be a series, so hopefully you enjoy this. Oh, without further ado, first, you know me, I like the history. I like to look back at things. So first we look at how the sheet even happened. So the 2013 was the first year and the first live auction in the league, which is really a live auction. We used the ESPN platform, and it was quite exciting. It was, for me personally, it was the first ever live auction I took part in, and it was a blast. But it really was quite quick, and from what I've seen and read on the message board, this was like the opinion of most of the GMs. Also, we had at least one no-show at the actual auction, so it wasn't optimal. And in 2014, we started discussing if we should look for another option to hold the auction. And it was then, so the discussion was raised, even though we decided to stick with a live auction. Once we neared the 2014 one, the question popped up again, and many of us were wondering if we should have another live auction and risk not having everyone aboard. So it was then when Jay said these memorable words. To be fair, this is not the exact words Jay said, but these are. And you see here in a simple post, he laid the groundwork for the sheet as we know it. So Jay suggested, let me take my yellow highlighter. So he suggested the Google Doc, the timestamps, and multiple players getting drafted in the same document. Also, he laid the 12-hour bidding window, or this the minimum time of an auction. So he was a visionary, and really we took this direction. And at first I was in the live draft camp, and I didn't know much about the Google spreadsheets at all, but I quickly started looking into it. So we worked together. Oh, I cannot get rid of the yellow things, so I must keep that in mind. We worked with Jay on a couple of examples. And once we started presenting these to the league, more and more GMs began to come to the spreadsheet camp, so to say. So at the end, we convinced pretty much, not all, but most of the GMs and the league managers who were Cam and Seth at the time. So this, with the inclusion of the timestamp macro, this pretty much became the sheet as we used it in the first couple of seasons. So you see the timestamp, the players and the team columns, basically the same format we used once we actually started the auction. So this was a great time for me, at least. It was really exciting to be part of something new, to develop something from scratch and to make it available and useful for everyone in the league. And as early as in the aftermath of the first ever auction using the sheet, so in 2014, there were GMs who started suggesting that we should include the term in the bidding to make it more realistic. So this idea, it took it a couple of years before it really gathered momentum, and we almost did it in 2016, but at the end, at the last moment, we decided that it is a bit rush, and we embedded the salary plus term bidding for 2017, which was the first time we actually had an auction with salary and term. But before that, Andrew wanted to help out, and he made quite a sales pitch. So with this sales pitch and seeing a man who can come up with such formulas and make them work, we couldn't say no, and we didn't even consider saying no to Andrew. So he joined the team, and actually together with Jay, they put in most of the work to make the sheet as we know it today, and as we've used it the last two years, which is, I think, quite a complex and very well thought of document. So I hope, of course, if this sounds that I'm glorifying the sheet, it is because this is what I'm doing, and for me it is something that I very much enjoy, and hopefully you as people who use it also appreciate it as a tool that makes our league unique. So okay, I'm going to stop with the emotional crap. So next, some figures and charts, of course. How big has the auction been so far? So you see here, these are the number of players signed each season. So the different seasons are in different colors. You see the years and the different tiers or tiers. I never knew. I never learned how it's the correct pronunciation. Anyway, you will understand no matter how I say it. You see basically here the outliner, the 2016 auction or free agent class. So this is the 4th year after our initial veteran draft. So naturally, all the best, or not all, but a very big majority of the best players had their contracts expire in 2016. So which brought a really rich FA crop. So this here is only the 2016 FA draft class, and these are only the players who earned contracts of 8 million, salaries of 8 million and above in the 2016 auction only. So you see, pretty impressive. Just imagine what it would be if the actual NHL has an FA crop like this. It would be bananas. So, but it's never gonna happen. So we are not looking at we will not be looking at it. Anyway, you will see here also on the next chart. This is the average salary per player. Again, the same structure. Here are the 4 years. Here the total and the different seasons in different colors. Now you see here again, although this is a lot more equal, here the depth of the 2016 class is warrants again a higher salaries basically in every tier and at the end in the total auction. And you see the other seasons, it's basically there isn't kind of an upward trend if you disregard the 2016. Sorry. And another chart which is basically combined of the other two. This is the total salary or AAV committed. Here we are not looking at the term, or at least not yet at this slide. So only the money, or not the money, the salary handed out. And you see here it's a combined effect of these two, so you see it's even more tilted towards the 2016 one. So how does it look in total figures? So in 5 seasons we have signed 740 free agents to contracts, all of the UDL teams. The $2.1 billion in total salary have been committed, and the average salary has been 3.0 million. What impact factors could we find, or could we exploit, or could we look into, which are influencing the different seasons and the different values here? First, the number of quality of the available free agents, which we already notice how it's really pumps up on auction. The number of open roster spots, which is actually decreasing because more and more EOCs and RFAs are being rostered by all the teams. Third, which is related to the previous, is inflation, because when you have more youngsters on controlled deals, you have a lot more free cash for free agents, and also the cap has risen in every single year since 2013, I think, or 2014. But anyway, in the last 5 seasons, it's always rising. And lastly, which we will look into a bit more detail on the next slide, is the bidding mechanics. So this basically means the bidding of salary plus term, not only salary. And just a quick comparison how to answer the question about how big is the auction compared to the NHL from this summer. So this summer, all NHL teams signed like 135, I think, free agents, unrestricted free agents. And the total salary they committed to them was below 200 million. So you see how much unimpressive, or how unimpressive compared to UDL is the NHL. So because of course they can resign the players, they don't have to expire. This is of course a big difference, but still it brings us to the fact that the UDL auction is much more star-studded. So next we look at the contract term. So the terms that were given to players signed the auctions through the years. So this here is a bit different style of chart. So you see here on the y-axis are the years, so the contract length from 1 to 4, of course, and you see here the tires are with a different color, and the years are on the x-axis. So what you see here, I have 2 averages also, the total average and also only the tire 1 plus 2 average with the dotted and the dashed lines. So basically the question here is, because since 2017, so the more green or blue, the light colored years, we have bids with salary and term. So the question is, does this impact the total term committed to players? So, and what we also said is that 2016 is an outlier, so we can basically ignore that. And here you see the picture a lot more clearly, especially the dashed green line, which is the top two years of and you see where it is the first 2 years and where it is the last 2 years. So basically it is definitely the top players in the top 2 tiers have earned a lot longer deals since we started bidding on salary plus term, which could of course have been expected, but this basically proves it. Also the black dotted line, which is the total average, is also up, but not as much or not as impressively as the green one. And you see that the tier 4 is basically irrelevant because it hovers around the mean, which is 2.5 in this case. So these are the observations in summarized what we already saw. It's interesting to see that tier 2 is actually the weakest, or has been the weakest in most seasons. Basically, we spent big bucks on tier 1 and basically hand them more term, and then we are a bit stingy as far as term goes on the tier 2 players. So, and you see, it's very also interesting. 2018, all the contracts as far as term goes regressed very heavily to the mean in this last auction, and it's interesting to observe in future years if this is a sign of us getting used to the new mechanic and becoming more balanced in terms of commitment and risk and everything, or is just a one time event when we basically didn't overcommit. Like for example this one, you see this last season in the top players, it was very much a very big majority of 4-year deals. Oh, next we look at all the teams in the UDL and how much and how often did they sign players at the auction. And you will not be surprised, I think, to find the goals not only at the top, but with a huge lead in terms of both money spent and players signed. So this could very well be dubbed Jay's UDL auction or something like this. If we start selling name rights, Jay should have the first refusal here. And at the bottom it's the J Lopes, not only because Max was not one of the biggest fans of the auction, at least at the beginning, but because he's so committed to his strategy of draft and develops that he most of the times he doesn't have a lot of open rooster spots to fill via the auction. And one overall observation that really made me happy while doing this is that compared to the draft, the prospect draft we have each season, there has not been a time when a team has fully skipped an auction. So you see here at this year's Clint and Mighty Camels were very, very limited in participation, so they signed only one player for a 2 million contract, but still they were here and they signed a player, and we don't have a missed auction by any team, which is cool. Even in the first year everyone was aboard, so congrats and thanks to everyone for always more or less diligently taking part and managing your team through the auction. Of course, you can see here a lot of different things, like that most of the team, of course, spent the most in 2016 when the crop was richer, and also that Jay basically bought himself a full team last season. and some teams who spend more on quantity, some spend more on quality. Like for example here the Flames, they have spent quite a good amount but for less players, so they basically gave big contracts. Here we have the Ice Dice, who are basically bargain hunters, and so on and so on. So you can spend a lot of times here. If you can pause and analyze for yourself. Anyway, we continue, and this is now looking at the players. So which were the biggest contract signs? These are only the salaries of 10 plus millions that were handed out, and you see here player, team, the which year it was, and so on, and the total value of the contract. Ovechkin is the only one who has 2 entries, so basically he broke the 10 million barrier twice. Once in 2015 with a record high contract of 14.1 million, and again in 2016 when he actually got the term to go with it. And my recent signing of Erik Karlsson is the biggest total contract signed yet, at technically 12.95 millions in 4 years. So the only one so far who broke the 50 million threshold as far as total commitment goes. You see here there is no particular trend in terms of teams who signed the big money. It's interesting that the Aces have 2 players here in this group, and they're both goalies, and also overall there are a lot of goalies here, which is reflecting the fact that goalies are really, or at least top level goalies are very scarce resource in our league, and in any deep fantasy league for that matter. And also looking at the other side, so which are the auctions journeymen, so the players who are regularly auctioned. And you might ask yourself, has there been a player who has hit the auction each season? And the answer would be yes, even 2 of them. So both goalies, speaking of goalies, and Craig Anderson, he is the ultimate journeyman because he has signed a 1-year deal each of the 5 seasons we had the auction, including this season. So he will be here again next season no matter what, if he's in the NHL, of course. And if you take a look at Anderson and look even further back, you will see that he has had a 1-year deal since the inception of the league. So he first was drafted by the Warriors in the regional veteran draft and got only a 1-year deal. Next, in the first auction, he was signed by the Steelers, again to a 1-year deal, and so on and so on. So he must have not bought a house yet, at least not in the UDL world. Sorry. James Reimer, he managed to get a 2-year deal this season from the Blazers, so he will not be making this a 6 next season if he's not bought out, but it's likely that he will not be. And Chad Johnson looks like the next 1-year deal man. But it's interesting that he managed to get re-signed twice during the last 4 years, so he still got some stability. Back-to-back seasons for the Macon Orlando franchise, and then for the Sparta one. And you see here the other players who got signed a lot and are regularly getting only 1-year deal. You see Yager here, but unfortunately he's out of the league. Otherwise it would have been fun to see him continue his run of 1-year deals. And if you look here, a lot of team logos, and you would imagine that all the teams would get at least one mention here, and it was like this, if only not for the pesky Tigers, who are not to be seen here. I don't know what to read into this. Maybe Cam has a very balanced approach, so he doesn't show up in the big deals nor in the small deals, so maybe he's somewhere in the middle. I don't know. Maybe he knows more than we can imagine. So anyway, that's I think everything I've got. Thanks for watching. I hope this didn't get too long, or not as long as some of the other videos. And again, from the sheet development team of myself, Jay and Andrew, thank you for watching, and looking forward to starting the season and getting not only doing videos which are basically meaningless, but getting into some real action. So see you around, and looking forward to the season. Bye.